We're back. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So great to see you guys again. So great to be here. Thank you, as always, to TYT Sports for having me here. Most of all, thank you to you, the viewers. You're the ones who keep these videos getting made. The more of these you watch, the more TYT Sports ask me to make them. So, again, thank you so much. This topic is another one that came from you guys. So let's get right into it. This is the top 10 WWE matches of all time. Now, my challenge in making this list was I didn't want to use the same wrestler twice. So once you hear a guy's name, he's gone. And that's what made this difficult, is because there's so many matches involving the same guys over and over again. And to me, that would have just been boring. So it was really difficult to pick the best one. But when the list is over, if you agree or disagree, talk about it in the comments below. As you've seen, I will do my best to comment on every single response that you guys put in. So without further ado, let's jump right into it with number 10. Chris Jericho versus Rey Mysterio Jr. at The Bash in 2009. They tried to make the Great American Bash cool by abbreviating it to just The Bash. But what made this match great was you had two guys who were feuding in WCW, and they were great technical wrestlers, they were great friends, and they just worked really well together in the ring. They had styles that really complemented each other, whereas Rey Mysterio had the great luchador style, the great high-flying angle, and Chris Jericho, to his credit, he can do a certain amount of that, but he's a great mat wrestler, and he really brings a lot of athleticism that pairs well with that. So these guys had this great back and forth, and what was compelling was the stipulation. It was a belt versus mask match. Jericho had the belt, and he said, hey, if I beat you, I get to unmask you. And that unmasking actually happened towards the end of the match. Jericho hadn't won yet, but he pulled Mysterio's mask off, and to his surprise, Mysterio had another mask on underneath. And that kind of stunned him just enough for Mysterio to put him in position for the 619, which for some reason is, you guys, like one of your favorite moves. When we did our previous moves, greatest moves of all time, it wasn't on there, and everybody got all mad. I'm like, sorry, I just think it's lame. What do you want me to say? But he hit the 619 on Jericho and won the title. So it was great. It was a lot of fun to see these guys in the now gone WCW. So it was good. Number 9 is a match technically, but not a one-on-one. It was the Royal Rumble. The Royal Rumble specifically from January 2001. Hey, you know who presented this? You know, it's always presented by some company. 1-800-COLLECT. Some of you might not be old enough to remember 1-800-COLLECT, but if you do, you just LOL'd. Yeah, 1-800-COLLECT. But this Royal Rumble is the Royal Rumble that every Royal Rumble wishes they could be. The Rock, Stone Cold, Kane, Triple H, the Hardy Boys, all the classic Attitude Era wrestlers, everybody that you love from the Attitude Era was in this Royal Rumble. And it was just great from the get-go. And some Royal Rumbles are better than others, but this one is head and shoulders above all of the rest because it was so good. And it was notable at the time because Kane was one of the first entrants, and he lasted almost the entire match. And in fact, he did last the entirety of the Royal Rumble. Stone Cold Steve Austin came in at number 27, but he didn't get to get in the ring. Triple H attacked him because Stone Cold had interfered in one of his matches earlier, so he bloodied them all up. So Stone Cold didn't even get to come in until almost the very end. He comes in, lays waste to everybody, and then he and Kane start battling each other out. Stone Cold's able to knock Kane over the rope and get the victory. At the time, Kane lasted 54 minutes and eliminated 11 people. Remember, this is 2001. That record would stand until 2014 when Roman Reigns would eliminate 12 people and the WWE pushed him into trying to be... All right, let's not talk about him anymore. Okay, number 8 was Kurt Angle versus Chris Benoit at the Royal Rumble in 2003. It saddens me every time we talk about Chris Benoit and how his tale ended because he was so good. He was just such a good wrestler, and it's so tragic what happened to him and his family. But he was such a proficient, technical wrestler, and so was Kurt Angle. And Kurt Angle still is. And so having these two guys go at each other and just to watch how impressive they were, how much knowledge they brought to the ring. I think it showed a different part of what professional wrestling can be when you get two guys who are that good at the technical aspect of it, and you can really see what an art form wrestling can be when you get two guys teaching what amounts to a master's class in that kind of mat wrestling. At the end of it, they ended up giving Benoit a standing ovation because there were countless false finishes and reversals and things like that. And even though Kurt Angle would win, it was great. It was a reversal. Chris Benoit got him in the crippler crossface. and Angle countered it, got him in the ankle lock, and Benoit tapped. But that didn't matter. The crowd still gave him a standing O because it was just so good. Done with that one. Number 7, CM Punk versus John Cena. This is a classic one that people love from Money in the Bank 2011. This is when both of these guys were in their prime. This is post pipe bomb that everybody loved, that CM Punk came out and started talking trash about the WWE. And to this day, people aren't sure whether or not it was a work or a shoot, whether or not it was real or fake. That's what's brilliant about it. That's why it stands the test of time. And that's what makes it such a pivotal moment in professional wrestling. So you had Punk at the height of his popularity in his hometown of Chicago. Chicago is one of those cities that when the WWE travels there for pay-per-views, the crowd almost takes over the show because they just go crazy. They react so vocally. So the performers, as they're doing their stuff, they're going to get an instant reaction from the crowd. The crowd's going to let them know what's working and what isn't. Chicago people just are not afraid. So it was great to see Punk in his hometown, and it was a rare loss for John Cena. It was a great match, first of all, but then John Cena just didn't lose at pay-per-views that often, especially in 2011. So not only did Punk win, and Miss McMahon got all pissed off, so you had the added bonus of pissing off the boss, he takes the title and runs into the crowd. The people in Chicago went ballistic. They went crazy. If you ever get a chance to hear it, like, it gives me goosebumps just thinking about how much the crowd popped for CM Punk. They loved him so much, and they loved the finish, and it was great. And I think whether people want to admit it or not, I think they gave a lot of respect to John Cena because of the performance he put in. Number 6 was TLC 2 at WrestleMania 17 in 2001. Probably, in my opinion, the greatest WrestleMania ever was 17. It's just my thinking. If you haven't watched it in a while, or if you haven't watched it at all, go back and watch WrestleMania 17. From start to finish, it's the best. So TLC 2 was obviously the sequel to the insanely popular TLC match. So you had the Dudleys, the Hardys, and Edge and Christian, and so you had the classic TLC guys who had innovated this match. And this is the one that has the infamous shot of Edge spearing Jeff Hardy in midair that they show on all the promos and stuff when they're talking about the WWE, and even when they're saying don't try this at home, because it was such an amazing moment, and it was such a wow, I can't believe those guys did that. I mean, they really sacrificed themselves. And just like TLC 1, Edge and Christian emerged victorious. So it was a great finish overall. Number 5, Stone Cold versus The Rock. Again, we're staying at WrestleMania 17. I mean, the two biggest stars of the time, arguably you could say the two biggest stars in WWE history, finally met off after months of feuding backs and forth. One of them would win, then the other would win. I mean, these guys single-handedly put WCW out of business. So for them to finally square off against each other, I mean, two fan favorites, people love that kind of thing. And something that a lot of people thought was surprising was at the end of the match, Stone Cold turned heel. He sided with Vince McMahon in order to win the match. That was crazy. I mean, that was unheard of to have Stone Cold turn heel, but it ended up being a great run for him, and it showed versatility, because being a heel is harder. To win over a crowd in spite of their feelings, to have to do all those things, your promos have to be better, your in-ring abilities have to be better. You have to make people like you and make them respect you, even if you're the bad guy. And nobody could do it better than Stone Cold and The Rock when they did it. It was beautiful. Number 4 was the British Bulldog versus Bret Hart at SummerSlam in '92. This was at Wembley Stadium, so you have Davey Boy Smith, the British Bulldog, who's British. You have Bret Hart, who's sort of British. He's Canadian, same difference. Yeah, some of their family members were ringside. They're brothers-in-law, so they're kind of related. So this was a big deal for them from a family standpoint. So it was a great match to watch because it had a lot of emotion to it. It had a lot of heart. And it had another great example of technical proficiency in both of these men. Bret Hart would actually say in his biography that Davey Boy Smith forgot the match. All the rehearsals they had done, all that stuff, he blanked. And so the match was kind of done on the fly. And I think that might have lent a little bit to it being so good, because it genuinely was thought up as they went and showed the professionalism, and it showed the raw talent of these two guys to be able to just create a match as they went. Number 3, Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant at WrestleMania 3. Some matches, they're not on this list because of their technical proficiency, or they're not just considered great because of that. They're considered great because of what they represent. And there's no way I could have justified putting this match any higher than 3, but there's no way I could leave it off. I mean, Hogan versus Andre the Giant catapulted the WWE into heights that it would have never imagined. I mean, it made superstars out of not just Hulk Hogan, but other wrestlers. Professional wrestling became cool. It became mainstream. It became popular thanks to him body slamming Andre the Giant. I mean, every year Andre the Giant gets bigger when Hogan retells this story, but it was still a monumental achievement for professional wrestling, and it brought WWE into being firmly entrenched into pop culture. Number 2, The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 25. I was surprised at how well this match was. I mean, this was only 7 years ago, so Undertaker and Shawn Michaels are no spring chickens even when they had this match. But for two guys who were a little long in the tooth, man, they put on a good show. I mean, it was awesome. It was back and forth. You actually thought that the Undertaker's streak was in jeopardy. For the first time in a long time, someone took him the distance, and it was back and forth. There was this great metaphor of good versus evil because Shawn Michaels had converted to Christianity, so he was wearing this white outfit, and the Undertaker's wearing the black outfit, and Jim Ross is doing this great commentary that really drove that point home. So when Shawn Michaels kicked out, he called it divine intervention. So they were real heavy-handed with the good versus evil thing. But that just made the match better. It made you kind of want to root for either side, depending on which side of that coin you fell on. But it was just fantastic all around. And of course, the Undertaker would get the victory. The streak would remain intact. They had a rematch next year at WrestleMania, which was okay, but it still just wouldn't live up to this original. This was just so good. All right, and here's the number 1. 2 names we haven't mentioned. Anybody want to take a guess? Anyone? Nobody? Okay. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat and Randy Savage, again at WrestleMania 3. I would argue this match is better, more important, and drives the point home more than the Hogan-Andre the Giant match. This was two guys who were perfectionists in the ring. They wanted to do things the right way every single time. So you had these two guys who absolutely wanted things to be the way that they needed to be for the fans. I mean, Ricky Steamboat and Macho Man, they were two big names. Again, this is an Intercontinental match that stole the show. It stole WrestleMania, I think. And they had such great backs and forths. They were both high flyers. And so they knew they didn't have the star power, at least of Hogan and Giant. So they had to do something that the fans had never seen and that they weren't going to see out of anyone else. And they really delivered. I mean, the match it's just incredible. And Ricky the Dragon Steamboat would end up winning the match. And to a lot of people's surprise, I think they thought that Randy Savage would retain. He had been champion for 414 days. He had been the Intercontinental champ. But Steamboat beat him, and that ended their feud to arguably the greatest match of all time. So that's my list. Did you agree? Did you disagree? Let me know in the comments below, or follow me on Twitter at Chief Josh Yola. You can also check out the articles that I write for dailyddt.com, and let me know what you think about those as well. As always, thank you all so much, TYT Sports. Thank you for watching. Talk to you soon. Thank you.